giggle about it, after going through a lot of it.
Yeah, also that giggling. I love it. It comes from nowhere, and all this. When something happens, I have to giggle about it because it's so stupid. It's so silly. And
Yeah,
before that, I would make a big, I don't know, I amplified it. I couldn't really estimate what was going on. Yeah, yeah, big change.
I'm happy for you, Chantal.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
happy for you.
Yeah, this
Too.
is, yeah.
It's the new improved you.
Improved? I don't know if it's improved. It's like, no, it's not improved. It's,
Mm,
when you clean up dust from
Yeah, I'm
something
just
that's
going to say
really,
you dusted something off there. Was exactly where I was.
yeah,
What I
that's
was
how it
seeing a
feels.
picture in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
getting the dust off.
Right.
I wonder why I have allergies right now.
Uh,
Yeah, your dust is coming off too. Robbie,
Yes.
with your son reaching out to you.
Oh,
My
that's
God.
sweet. That's bittersweet. That's
Oh,
nice. Everything's coming together.
yeah. It was a big thing too. I mean, so painful.
Yes. Sweet.
you know,
We've had a
Uh,
very good banter. I heard an echo or something. I
yeah, I heard some.
don't know if it's me or not.
No,
But
someone's system is echoing. I still hear it, or it's mine, perhaps. Um,
echo, echo, echo.
Any more? No more?
no, it
Nope.
stopped.
Yep. But we've had a very good banter back and forth. Some good volleys, very healthy volleys back and forth. Nicholas and me, and he seems to be in a very good spot. Although some of it is a little bit toxic, as opposed to before, where what I thought or perceived. It's a lot better than I ever anticipated. How much shit the boy's been through. I sent him a picture, and he's like, "I'm ugly," because he's had already 54 surgeries.
Oh,
So he has big wounds with his face, and he's hypercritical of himself in that manner. So I got to limit my pictures that I send him. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But that's sort of sensing and feeling it out and sensing and tracking.
yeah, it's also learning to attune a bit to his
Yes,
bandwidth.
yes,
Oh, wow,
absolutely.
that's also an exercise.
Sure is.
Well, and this is common among youth today, body dysmorphias, and and it's just youth in general, because young people are comparing themselves to models who've been airbrushed. And I just think all youth are beautiful. At the age of 60 now, there's no ugly ones. Youth is beauty. But yeah, poor guy. It's a lot to contend with.
Yes, it is. Well, what happened here? Oh, yeah,
Holly,
but
do you
I
think
think
it's now more um, upfront with youth than it was in our time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more images, there's more access to images. Back when we were young, we had magazines, right? You had to go and buy a magazine to see these pictures. Now they're right in your hand for
mm-hmm.
children.
Hmm.
on all social media platforms.
Yeah, no filter on the Polaroids.
No, that's
No.
true, but
Yeah, and even to the general public could exchange photographs that everybody's what they really are. But now even the youth can adjust their photographs. So,
Well, the fact they have to take the time, yeah.
well, they will for the likes and for the for the shame of their normal image, you know.
Yep. So I gotta watch myself with him on that. Gotta be very discerning how I handle that with him. If he's very hypersensitive to that, then you know. So I gotta be sensitive and discerning what I send to him. He doesn't remember most of his childhood, he says. And that could be his CPTSD and a lot of stuff codes overwritten.
yeah, that fragmented memory, that I resonate with that. I think a lot of us do. Like, it's sort of rebuilding your memory again, piece by piece. I did a lot of that in this group, by journaling and being triggered and people telling something, and then I know, oh yeah, I recall that memory too.
Maybe sensitive isn't precise enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Trying to be sensitive to sensitivity could easily be paranoia to sensitivity, or walking on eggshells. So there's different pointers, and maybe that'll be part of today's theme. That what's the response? What does he need? How is your attachment reach landing? How is he responding to your bid? And then how do you adjust from that? Or how do you get more information if you don't understand it?
So that's what I need to clarify with him.
Well, he's always communicating to you. That'd be John Fredrickson's theory. You're always getting feedback.
Okay.
So even when he's shutting down or giving you nothing, that is a response to some sort of bid for connection or some sort of message. So
yes.
What's his response? What do you represent?
Ugly. He says he's ugly.
Mm-hmm.
He's ugly.
And then
I counter that with, no, you're not.
Yes, so that's the
you're
go-to.
wonderful.
But what's he trying to communicate from that?
Trying to communicate that he has bad feelings of his body image.
And I don't have any quick answers for that, but I'm saying that we sort of try to fix the feeling, but maybe there's more to that story.
Oh,
maybe
big time.
calling himself ugly was adaptive in the past. Maybe it has something more. So you can, there's nothing wrong with how you're responding. I'm just saying the more you can stay in observer mode and try to figure out what the unmet needs are, what the underlying communications might be, then you can build a bridge instead of just tiptoeing around feelings or tiptoeing around flashbacks.
That's what I've been doing for the past week with him. So you're right. I need to stay in observer mode, ask the questions. Why do you feel this way?
Just stay curious. You don't have to press the questions too much because you're communicating, so you're getting feedback.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And then even your feedback from him, maybe you'll get answers in your dreams. Maybe you'll get answers outside of his communication. It's just
subconsciously.
The pace of how we communicate, especially with hypervigilance, like Chantal said, her hypervigilance has dropped. So that ability to wait for the answers was something that the people had trouble waiting for answers. They got to have the answer now, because that urgency and anxiety is driving the attention.
Yeah, I'm trying to take it as slow as possible.
Mhm.
And he seems to be pressing the envelope, putting the gas pedal down.
Ah, okay. So
I'm trying to slow the pace.
What's the
And
driving his pedal? So
The unmet need. The
what
unmet
is he
need
urgent about? What is he worried about? Or is it
that
an
I won't
old
accept
pattern?
him.
Is it
It's
an old pattern
acceptance.
of his mom, and he still has that communication
Probably.
strategy, so he's copying it to you?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Projection.
Well, it could be. I don't know if we have enough information yet, but it's an
You're right.
overinvestment of energy. That's how I would.
Yes, there's
frame it.
energy there. There's definitely energy.
The overinvestment might have mixed feelings. So there might be fear, there might be desire for connection, there might be multiple feelings being oceanically merged at you, which is
Yes.
going to take some time to sort out.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
I have to decipher every move, decipher everything, and
Well, you are.
take very.
You are unconsciously deciphering whatever communications, projection, transference, all the bids. You're taking it in. It's just
Yes.
the more you can consciously try to stay curious, to sort out the
Bring it
puzzle
into
pieces, the more you
awareness.
can bring it to awareness or direct it towards the future or connect the dots
Yep.
of past, present, future. And that just... part of the sell is it's a hard sell to trust the process, or the stance of that if you invest in love, if you invest in interest, that with time it'll work out.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yes. See, so as you trust the
Cautiously
process and the
optimistic.
process gives you results, then you can trust it more.
Yes.
But it's easy to
So,
fall
like-
into the hypervigilant mode where you want to control the outcome, or you're worried about messing
Yeah.
up. And,
I'm not in the driver's seat. I gave that wheel up.
and
You know,
but he's going to be
just like
flooding you
Chantel
with
did
that.
last week.
He might be flooding
yeah.
you with that urgency energy. So it
Big
still might
time.
be hard
Big time.
not to meet him at the same anxiety.
Yes. So I'm trying to discharge the energy out of it.
Well, that's by you talking about it on the Discord and in here with other people, you're able to discharge it outside of him
Yes.
to try to refine yourself after the confusing merges or the
Yes.
extra energy.
I agree with it.
Mhm.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I feel that. I think it's very helpful also for us, because I also have a son who's struggling with his body images.
I kind of
There's-
figured that,
there's-
Chantel.
And there's a lot of anxiety
Big
beneath
time.
it. And I'm sensing a lot with my son
Mm.
that it's,
Yes.
am I okay? Have I the right to exist as I am? That's a sort of need going on. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly because it will be his language, his words. But that sort, and
Mhm.
I think if we can deal with the anxiety outside of them, outside of their connection, and we build a muscle to hold on or to contain or to stay open with this anxiety dump, then we can stay present, because otherwise we will take over the hypervigilance and go all away. I think there's a shaming inside or on top of anxiety. And maybe that's even more toxic for the interaction than the anxiety itself.
So let's play with Chantal's framing. Let's say it's something like, am I okay? can I exist as I am? And in society, with all the social media and all the filters and all the pressures to fit in, that might be a valid question. Dating sites and a highly visual social media platform is emphasizing looks and presentation.
Like Holly was explaining, in our time we only had images, and that was just a part of who we were. But there was also a part like what we could do, our gifts, our talents, that would come up too. So we had multiple levels where we could show ourselves. But now it seems to me like it's reduced to only the visual parts, like how do I look?
Mm-hmm.
So the ugly and looks, I think there's an overemphasis on looks and not on gifts and talents, and because I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough from the youth now. Maybe that's not important enough.
Mm.
Visual and virtual signaling. Oh yeah, okay.
I think you're right, Chantal. I think it's become very visual.
Yeah, it's good what you're saying. And also that virtual signaling. I noticed that too.
Mm.
But why do they do that? Image?
Yeah, public relations.
A lot of people have to create an online brand.
Well, I think it's the thing that people can attack most easily. At children, children when they want to be brutal with each other because they're whatever in their emotions.
Mm.
That's what they'll do. They'll attack what they can see first.
So even if they're attacking somebody who doesn't care about that because the attack is their public reputation or their brand, then there's a drive to defend it or to monitor this, where in the past this avatar, this social media online presence branding avatar wasn't so 24/7, wasn't so malleable by other people's opinions. So maybe one trap of this, I don't know if it'll be for Robbie's situation or Chantal's situation, but some people sometimes will just negate the plea. So if the plea is like, can I exist as I am? It's a plea to society. Or it's a plea
as you've seen, I took this screenshot, put it in Discord,
Mhm.
that I accept him as he is.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
or
if the plea
anything
is
else,
to society.
That's probably what his plea is.
Yeah, so you being a spokesperson is not going to replace all the negative challenges of conditional love and judging visuals that he's receiving through all the other mediums. Like for me, part of this labor of love is this content and the teachings, and a lot of times people don't see it.
Yeah, it sucks. And I'm sorry for that. It sometimes takes a long time before it sinks in or I connect the dots, because it's from a higher level than what I am at that moment. And then later on I catch up and I think, oh fucking hell, that was good. So yeah, that's true. And it sucks because you're already there and we are running behind. And then you don't get feedback. So yeah, I'm really sorry for that, Eve.
So I mean,
is this a plea?
What?
Go ahead. Is this a plea for gratitude?
from his son? Or
To
from
who
me?
are you speaking?
I guess anyone who's wanting to be appreciated and feels they're not.
Yeah, but aren't we all, Holly?
Oh.
I
It
think
might
this
not
is a
be,
human.
it could be a plea for gratitude. It might be a plea for existence.
Yeah.
If you're a 20-something or a young man and society doesn't really give you a place and there's a bunch of walls and rejections all over the place, where do I fit in? What's the purpose of my life? In person, they were talking about what's the meaning of life. These sort of, okay, I'm finally free from my jailed mother, my home. I can map out my life. Why bother?
And to be honest, I think men at this moment have more problems than women.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no space, no place for them anymore. No role
Well,
model.
it's definitely
That's what
challenging.
that's what my sons are saying. Like there are no role models for us how to be a man.
Okay. No
Even
role
my
models.
oldest sons is saying that. Like, I want a role model. Who's a real man? How do I do that?
That's what my son wants and needs.
Yeah,
That's the
mine too.
unmet need right there. And it was a very subtle way for that when he said that to me, the first message that he sent.
Mm-hmm.
I need a father in my life.
Yeah. And that's someone who can show him how to be a man, how to be a lover, how to be all these roles. I notice my sons are asking that, but I don't know. I'm a mother.
Yes, Chantal's wisdom.
Yeah.
He needs that.
It's not wisdom, that's reality.
He wants that male mentorship. He wants to become a man. He wants to have some burden to prove that to the world or prove that to himself.
Yes.
Yes, and if the society is over focusing on visuals and not on meaning, not on mastery, not on skills, then
there's no connection possible.
No, and all these masculine qualities are banned. It's all about feminine qualities. That's not that's not working.
I remember Jordan Peterson talking about that.
The problem is
you
still
were
there.
in that group in what's his name's group?
Rogers
group. We had a very good banter back and forth about that with Roger.
But the problem is still there.
Yeah.
So we're trying to use our mentalization skills to try to put ourselves in a 20-something's first-person perspective, immersed in this social media 24/7. Future doesn't look so bright.
But can we? I mean, there's this generational... I don't know if I'm able to have this first person because I don't live that life. I think my mentalization will be biased because I don't have the experience.
Well, yes, all of us don't have the experience, but maybe collectively.
As a group, as third person, fourth person, and fifth person.
As combined third person, fourth person, fifth person, we can get closer to first person. Plus, we have the patience and the life experience to not be lost in first person. Because it's not about getting it right. It's just about trying to get better at meeting him where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So maybe this could fit into part of the theme that society is devoicing their liberty. Society isn't really offering
big time.
Yeah,
many
Big
paths
time.
for,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I'm with you,
for both
Chantal.
negative and positive liberty. So things are expensive. The future doesn't look so bright. Saving up to buy a home, a lot of young people have given up on that. And there's so many tools to just avoid and hide in fantasy. Why would you choose the path of mastery? Let alone there aren't really role models that are teaching it or
Yeah.
to get mentorship or to pursue any sort of competence mastery pathway. So just a lack of liberty options, a lack of choices to develop competence creates a devoicing, or it creates an absence of like, where do I belong? Where can I find belonging? How do I matter?
They don't matter.
There's a lot of messages that say that too.
I'm serious, man. I'm serious. They don't really matter much anymore, you know. They're fucked. They're in deep shit, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true, Nick. That's
Well,
true. I'm
Sometimes honesty is what a mentor might say. I mean, a lot of people like Richard Grannon's "No one's coming to save you."
Mm.
Put that meme up. Put that meme up, Thief.
If I can find it, where is it? I don't...
No one's coming to save you.
I thought I'd have it easier. I guess audio.
Nobody's coming to save you. 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 Nobody's coming to save you.
So,
That's like,
so maybe sometimes giving validation too easily is invalidating the reality that they've got to prove themselves to the world. That the world maybe isn't offering an easy path, or the world has got extra stumbling blocks for men, or for C generation, or next generation after that. Isn't this generation the generation that's over-helicoptered, over-managed, over-monitored,
Micromanaged.
over-therapyized? So maybe they need risk. Maybe they need someone to map out real risks and get a feel for it.
Too many PlayStations.
yeah, and too much
Much
protection.
Yeah,
I
they've been
mean,
overprotected, so maybe at that young age they
Maybe
have
they need some
hormones that want new experiences. Yeah, they might be looking for trauma. They want to have some resilience. There's someone on the book series or pitching a book about mental health therapists, or there's too much therapy. And then part of that therapy for young kids is the teachers and the school counselors are projecting incompetence or fragility onto kids. Everything's a trauma. Everything's sadness. Everything's like feelings first. But if you do that too early, maybe the kids aren't, they don't have the self-awareness to regulate their emotions yet. They just get caught up in their emotions and they do stuff. And now they have these protocols that work for adult people being dumped onto them.
yeah, I think that's teachers and so on. They're dumping their stuff onto the children.
Mm-hmm. So how much of the male traditional role of the father just is rather distant because he's not surprised, where the mother might jump in and tend to over-soothe or over-worry about things. Sometimes the father is just keeping the home from falling apart.
Well, that's what I did for many years.
Mhm.
Many years. Many years. Too many years.
So if he's coming to you to like maybe share his frustrations, maybe partially your stoicism or your lack of joining him in urgency is role modeling.
Oh, yeah, I told you
See?
this, 3-4 months ago, Deef,
Mhm.
guys, is that I have to be the grounding for him.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And now
I-
it's coming into sight. It's coming into play.
Yeah, but that's the masculine quality that we all appreciate. I mean, if there's this groundedness, I can come with all my burdens and I can have it on the table without upsetting you, because otherwise I have another problem. So that's this masculine energy we need. And I think society and a lot of these young people need that. Because most mothers will get upset.
Sometimes it's justified.
Yeah, too.
Because guys will go just go too far the other way. So walk it off.
So what if it's a link that's between determination and freedoms?
Determination and freedoms. Well, yeah, he's free now. He's trying to be free and be an adult, an adulting.
Yeah,
It's
but
something that
adulting
he was
freedom
lacking.
isn't something that you just claim. That's the path of mastery to get positive liberty.
Yeah.
And then we can over-validate and we can over-manage somebody to create the illusion of freedom and the illusion of agency. But have they proven that they can be determined? Do they trust their ability to determine their future or to navigate difficult situations?
No.
So, excess validation might be weakening the muscle of determination.
He needs to build that muscle up. And that's what I'm trying to ensue in him.
So building that muscle up is sort of like it's a role of a coach or a mentor or some apprenticeship where it's just slowly immersion of doing practices, building that muscle of determining things, how to guide the process, how to tinker and improve and learn some craft. To get his hands dirty and his foot into the world, into the ring. And then feeling stable out there, which means he might need to fall down and mess up, but it's not really about not falling down. It's not really about not messing up.
It's about getting back up. It's about getting back up off the mat.
It's
Keep on
about
moving forward.
learning in this environment and then moving forward because you trust the environment. Because you're developing the skill of navigating the environment. You're developing the skill of wielding a weapon. You're developing a skill of having a toolbox and learning how to use those tools.
Ooh, just fits into your topic of the meeting. Just nice and fine, Beef.
Which
How
is
about
another
that?
skill, see? So
See?
you present me these products and then I can try to combine it, and that's a skill
Mastery that? Yeah.
I'm
See?
directing, to take the stuff and then try to make it work together. Because I would argue that mental health just creates walls and said, don't like this, and somehow you can create some masterpiece by just saying rejecting a bunch of shit. Imagine if you're a chef, you say, okay, this place has eggs and this, but I don't want this, I don't want this, I'm only used to this ingredient. And then you try to make something out of rejecting all the ingredients in front of you. Or wanting to ship all these ingredients from other places because that's all you know. I only know this recipe. That's not mastery for a chef. That's not mastery for a householder. You're creating a house. So even women's role, or mother's role of creating a house, that's been absented, neglected, taken over by technology or outsourced or something. Or glamorized. So, like MasterChef, we're seeing all the TV shows that are glamorizing cooking. Though some of it's pretty impressive. You put these kids in 20 minutes, do some amazing dish. So negative and positive liberty. It's a simple concept, but a little confusing. This is from Educated. It's an audiobook by Tara Westover. Was she a Mormon cult survivor? Re-listening or watching parts of her book, or reading some of a book, I see she has a lot of fragmented thought because she's jumping all over the place. So that takes away some credibility of her story. But her reaction to positive and negative liberty was pretty good. So this is a 2-minute audio portion.
Topic, which was Isaiah Berlin, the lecture topic, which was Isaiah Berlin's 2 concepts of liberty. Negative liberty is the freedom from external obstacles or constraints. An individual is free in this sense if they are not physically prevented from taking action.
So a lot of times society now is saying safe space and boundaries, and somehow the illusion of that is helping people with negative liberty. Or even DEI is trying to have equity. So you've grown up with unfair restrictions, so we'll try to make equity equal. So we're trying to equalize results or equalize reward. So that's trying to deal with negative equity. Limit restrictions for people that unfairly were too restricted. My translation. Sometimes people translate it as positive liberty.
Positive liberty is freedom from internal constraints. The lecturer tried to clarify. He said, positive liberty is self-mastery, the rule of the self by the self. To have positive liberty, he explained, is to take control of one's own mind, to be liberated from irrational fears and beliefs, from addictions, superstitions, and all other forms of self-coercion.
So to be liberated from
is to take control of one's own mind, to be liberated from irrational fears and beliefs,
to be liberated from irrational fears and beliefs. But that's not to say that you should be liberated from rational fears and beliefs, like the world is unfair and the world has no place for me. A lot of times we're devoicing people's actual read of reality. There is some comment about you can give people a calm app, except they're not calm because someone's stabbing them in the back with a knife constantly. So that's why they're anxious, because they're getting stabbed a lot. Maybe Chantal was getting like a lot of pressure on her back, so that's why she was anxious. So I can give her a calm app and say, it's not important. It's not. Stay calm. Or I could help her, like, kick the person who's stabbing her, or take the knife away. A lot of times we're just dismissing people's actual gripes. We're devoicing them in the name of helping them, or we can try to give them some agency to sort through the extra noise, or to actually block whatever restrictions that are invading them. Sometimes stoicism is taught with such a heavy hand. It's just like trying to teach people to be a robot. Trying to teach people to be a schizoid AI machine. So, positive liberty is the path to mastery, and it's the path of maybe breaking from self-deception. And I would say that modern society has even more tools to self-deceive.
Addictions, superstitions, and all other forms of self-coercion. I had no idea what it meant to self-coerce. I wanted to ask for further explanation.
Earlier in the book, she does tons of self-coercion. So she's about to cry, so she goes in front of a triple mirror and then brainwashes herself that she's not sad. So, of course, she doesn't know what self-coercion is a bad thing, because self-coercion was her survival strategy. That makes it even harder for somebody who's had CPTSD or childhood sexual abuse, where self-coercion and self-gaslighting was how you survived. The path of self-mastery is just not on the table, because you've been devoiced.
But something stopped me. The certainty that to do so would be to shout to the room that I didn't belong there. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Marley had written that line a year before his death, while an operable melanoma was...
Bob Marley. And then I tried to take out the extra noise of her stuff, but it'd be too much of a jump. So this is now Bob Marley's story when he had melanoma.
Was, at that moment, metastasizing to his lungs, liver, stomach, and brain. I imagined a greedy surgeon with sharp teeth and long skeletal fingers urging Marley to have the amputation. I shrank from this frightening image of the doctor and his corrupt medicine.
This is an example of a potential thought disorder. So she's hearing Bob Marley's story, and she's getting a scary doctor image of somebody else's toil and getting emotionally reactive to a fictive projection and getting taken over by that noise. Therefore, she has no self-mastery. She has no positive liberty, because her mind is flooding her with fantasy that's distracting her from being determined, from following what's being determined, how to work with what fate gives you, and determining your future.
And only then did I understand, as I had not before, that although I had renounced my father's world, I had never quite found the courage to live in this one. I flipped through my notebook.
And this conclusion is more evidence of thought disorder.
Not before, that although I had renounced my father's world, I had never quite found the courage to live in this one.
Even though she rejected her father's gaslighting or cult, whatever, because she went to school. Her father didn't want her to go to school. She's blaming herself that she didn't have the courage to enter this world. Is that basically what she's saying?
Renounced my father's world, I had never quite found the courage to live in this one.
I had never
I flipped through my notebook to the lecture on negative...
Is courage something you find? Is there a special door or a special Amazon order where you can order the courage and now you have the courage to be in this world?
Only on Prime. Only
it's
on
self-blame.
Prime.
Yes, it's a clever way of self-blame.
Yeah. Oh, I resonate with this. Yeah.
So she's blaming herself for self-blame for something that's a skill. It's not an issue of guilt. It's an issue of competence. It's an issue of building the skill through exposure, through having some role models, through having a proxy to practice some skills. So then you'll have the courage and the confidence. But courage is not something that you can order off Amazon. I guess you could have liquid courage. That would be called something that makes you reckless and do stupid stuff, but we call it liquid courage. And sometimes that breaks inertia. So in a sense, yes, liquid courage will help you to break inertia from embarrassment and shame, and or you'll do something reckless. So then you break the stigma or break the inertia. But it's a thought disorder. So she had this vision, and then she's self-blaming. So she's still caught up in the father's cult of, or she's caught up in her defenses against whatever she grew up with. And she's still using the same defenses of excess self-punishment, excess guilt, to create the illusion of liberty. But it's a overly willpower, forceful way of trying to push through the world, which is, it's convincing her mind, but it's not really determining the future very well. Though technically the modern world does allow a lot of schizoid dominant brain nonsense. So it rewards it. So the world is supposed to reward character, but we're rewarding a lot of delusion. So we can't blame people for playing that game. It's not going to make their soul happy. That'll be part 3.
This frightening image of the doctor and his corrupt medicine, and only then did I understand, as I had not before, that although I had renounced my father's world, I had never quite found the courage to live in this one. I flipped through my notebook to the lecture on negative and positive liberty. In a blank corner, I scratched the line, "None but ourselves can free our minds. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery."
Well, that's a quote from Bob Marley. And partially it's true. There's the other side of that maybe we do need role models and others to help emancipate our minds. The learning curve might be too hard. Might take you a lifetime to learn a little skill. Where you can go find some people that can be teachers, mentors, sparring partners, so you can speed up the learning curve and not have to just fall on your face multiple times. So this statement of only you can do it can be a way of hiding from emotional closeness. So even though she's trying to free her mind, she's using the pointers of freeing her mind to con herself.
I scratched the line, "None but ourselves can free our minds."
So a misunderstanding of the statement. But yes, you need to consciously be ownership of this is a task that you alone have to own. But that's not a task that you alone do in isolation. Because part of becoming a social self and proving yourself to the world is you have to be in the social environment. You have to build a collective self that is based on something your mind can't control. You can influence it, but you need people's reflection. Like, I have this beautiful piece of art. I can con myself that it's beautiful, but if I want some level of competence, I want to make it so that other people can appreciate it. Or you can say, oh, I want to make a bicycle. That was the in-person example. So I can put together the pieces, but if it doesn't work as a bicycle, Should I just find people to tell me that it's a great bicycle, or do I want something that has utility? And isn't there like a high when you actually fix something where it works?
Oh,
That's
God.
something determined. That's part of positive liberty. To get the skill, to have the personal pride of accomplishment. And then Robbie can have the secondary pride of nakas, the Jewish term for secondary pride. So you have this pride that somebody you're helping gets mastery.
Yes.
Nakas.
Passing the skills down. Passing the skills down.
Yeah.
Passing on to the next person, passing on to my children, Passing on mentoring.
So a lot of the teachers and a lot of the mental health professionals now don't really care about secondary pride. They're worried about imposter syndrome. They just don't want to fail. They want to feel like they're a good teacher. They don't care about
Dr. Romney.
Competence. That's secondary. They want the grandiose pride. What else is in here?
Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. Positive liberty is freedom from internal constraints.
So this is one of my toils with this group, trying to promote positive liberty. And then the group will try to use moralizing and other things to promote negative liberty. That the group and the parent deef can somehow remove restrictions because some moral outrage has happened where no one's physically died, no one's been traumatized, and there's a sparring partner that's helping you develop positive liberty. Repetition compulsion is hard. It continues. So the group and mentors can help you have practice sessions. They can give you a proxy for how to do things. But one of the skills that's missing, and one of the skills I was trying to promote to Robbie and Chantal, is like, let's try to listen and see better.
Observer mode.
Let's try to build observer mode and more practical methods instead of SCT's magic chart that doesn't really change anything. Or reflective listening and then joining subgroups in infantile, gratuitous, gratifying, satisfying ways that doesn't build the skill. Because they also want to cheat the system. So they're getting multiple views, but since you're jumping in popcorn fashion, you're not making it coherent. So this is a hard pointer, so let's throw the end result with a meme.
The message is there, has the answer, has the medicine. There's a message, the message is there, has the answer, has the medicine. There's a message, the message is there.
What was the response? I just related to her. How is she responding to that? What is that? What was the patient's response to intervention? What was the response?
What's coming up for you?
I just related to her. How is she
The message is there, has the answer, has the medicine. There's a message, the message.
I want you to be very comfortable. Identify each resistance he does. Identify each resistance he does. And that's it. I want you to be very comfortable. Identify each resistance he does. Our task is not to repeat what she said. Our task is to analyze what she said. Our task is not to repeat what she said. Our task is to analyze what.
The message is there, has the answer, has the medicine. There's a message, the message is there.
What was the response? I just related to her. How is she responding to that? What is that? What was the patient's response to intervention? What was the response?
So we don't have enough, I would argue that we don't have enough mentors that are pointing to this sort of adult perspective of like, well, what the fuck's happening? Let's get some more opinions. Let's get some more stuff. Let's not rush to decisions. Let's not just gaslight people with things like this.
You decide, you decide, you decide, you decide, you decide, you decide, you
Let's not
decide.
rush people to answers.
You decide, you decide, you decide, you decide. Cognitive overload, cognitive overload, cognitive overload, cognitive overload. You decide, you decide, you decide, you decide, you decide, you decide, you decide.
We need to slow down and say,
The message is there.
What is this teaching me about relationships? How is this going to make me a better person in the future?
Figure out the why behind the what. Figure out the why behind the what.
What is the purpose in my current pain? What is the purpose in my current pain?
Your hatred is extremely important. It tells you what is missing inside you. Your hatred is extremely important. It tells you what is missing inside you.
The message is there. Has the answer. Has the medicine. There's a message. The message is there. Has the answer.
so what if listening is a muscle? What if awareness is a muscle? What if reading the environment is a muscle that comes through experience? How much can you shortcut a lifetime of experience?
Yep.
And then how do you recognize
True.
somebody who has a lifetime of experience? From their skill. Where you can recognize somebody who's a great talker, who can produce a bunch of words and books. They're going to have a bunch of content.
Tony Robbins.
They'll look like they have skill. Well, then you test their skill. Yeah, so you have a lot of content versus somebody who's good at listening and seeing. I think, like, test the fruit. So listening. Let's go see.
Is that you don't just listen with your ears. You listen with your voice. You listen with your eyes. You listen with your smile. You listen with the hand. You listen as you walk closer to the person, hands in therapy, in person, and not just online. There is, the whole body listens.
A little abstract, but this is sort of erotic intelligence is her angle. So you listen with a tactile, tangible, gentle approach, which can be your posture, your language, your way you carry yourself, and you're trying to read somebody else's energy. So this is one extra layer of listening.
And the more you listen like that, the quality of your listening is what will shape what the speaker will tell, how much, how open, how deep. Meaning, listening is not just the passive recipient. Listening shapes the speaker.
So this could be like sexy listening. Can you be in a place of listening that helps the other person open up more? Not just listening for reflection or other stuff. Listening that makes them comfortable, makes them relax, makes them reveal more, makes a relationship instead of just a protocol of reflective listening where you masturbate each other.
Yeah, it's that
People seem to enjoy
listening.
that.
But I was referring to when we had this exploration, like the invitation, this energy.
It's an invitation. Yeah.
There's no expectations. You didn't, if you didn't expect me to perform, you didn't expect me to bring something, you didn't expect me to go through my pain or to my anxiety. You were just present, and anything that I would throw at you would be okay. that's also what my son was trying to explain to me, like what I bring, what I am, what is feeling inside of me, is that okay to bring to the table? So if this invitation is there, if you're having this groundedness, and so whatever I throw out there, we will have a look at it. That kind of invitation, that's listening. And that indeed will shape what I can bring, because then I feel the safety. I feel like it's okay, whatever you throw at me, we will handle it. So
Right
there's
there.
this we that comes up there. It's not me performing, it's not me bringing something, it's what
Being.
I bring, we make a we of it. And that's the
Being,
invitation.
and then wing instead of performing. Me performing and you performing. It's being that comes up.
It's being
and then
we.
We. Being we.
Yeah, and you know, in the triangle where we go to this place of we, you know, the two triangles, the love triangles, the we space.
We space.
Oh, that one. The passionate one.
Yeah.
That's scary.
With the flag on it. With the flag on it.
The eyes
that's
on
a
it.
scary space.
That's a scary space. People don't like
of course.
passion.
No.
Passion is so sexy, but people don't like that because it's
people
manic.
don't like that.
It's lustful, it's desirous and playful. Yeah, that's sort of the erotic intelligence, yeah. Esther Perel space, yeah, this we space. So you got touch and playfulness, and you got passion, and people are being seen, and you're being seen, and people are being revealed, exposed.
Yeah.
The
But
we
not
space.
with expectations, not with dumping your anxiety, not with dumping your shit onto me. Just like, let's play together.
Yep.
Let's love together. Yeah.
Let's
Sorry,
love
I
together.
don't.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah.
The we space. So Esther Perel is good at articulating this erotic type of listening. The we space, the being to we, right? An invitation for playfulness, an invitation to join in being, join in the we space.
Yeah, because if we can play, then all this density, all this burden gets relieved. Because if you play, you cannot have the burden. You get out of your shoes and get out of your backpack and all the stuff you get out. Because you want to play.
There's a sort of freedom, so that's a way of achieving liberty, or practicing positive liberty, by having somebody else provide the space of negative liberty. Less restrictions and actually more safety to play. Because if you go into the real world and play, you get harsh consequences. So. Or you get consequences that don't give you any way out. So you actually, the consequences make you hate yourself more or second guess yourself. So the consequences are counterproductive. So what else does she say?
Shapes the speaker. Listening is a certain kind of engagement with the unknown. It's curiosity. It's being completely...
Engagement with the unknown. I think SCT would call this the edge of unknown, where Esther Perel is trying to sell and make the edge of unknown sexy, while SCT would try to impose the edge of unknown and just berate people to be more excited at the edge of unknown. And they would try to trademark it and say that, oh, edge of unknown is like some magical thing relabeled. Well, somehow she's pointing to the same thing.
Known. It's curiosity. It's being completely available to what the other person is telling you. And today, many people in their interactions experience ambiguous loss. I'm talking to you about something super important and you're just like ticking away. And it makes me feel like anything I'm telling you has no value.
So the ambiguous loss is so people are so distracted by social media and other stuff that there's divided attention. So we're not listening and receiving to complete the circuit. So there's a subtle dismissal with our current disconnected, hyper-connected landscape. So this is a more intimate plea for listening, while this is a more technical plea. John Fredrickson is getting a bit, or was more softer in this talk, but we'll see how it is on our re-listen.
You always need to have at least two perspectives you look through, so you have binocular vision. Because if you look only at conflict, you will have no awareness of the actual quality of the relationship that's happening. We have to remember that any lens that we use to look at a patient allows us to see certain things, but also prevents us from seeing others. It's like my glasses allow me to read. Binoculars help me see a bird. An electron microscope would help me see atomic structure. I couldn't use that electronic microscope in order to view the bird in a tree. Every concept you use really allows you to see something important. But if you use only one concept or one perspective, you become the hostage of that perspective. You'll notice in the supervisions here, sometimes I'm helping people think in terms of the triangle of conflict. Sometimes I'm helping them think in terms of transference. Sometimes I'm helping them see the latent content so they can see transference. So like we could say, when this patient that in relationships, she's apathetic and she's uninvolved, we could say, so how might that apply to therapy? That's learning to hear latent content. Then we're also able to look at enactment. Oh, wow, I find myself like I'm becoming the active one and she's passive. So enactment becomes another lens. Then we could look at countertransference. With Animo's inner countertransference thought, it's up to me, I have to be hyper responsible. And that also helped us see, oh, right, if I'm hyper responsible, the patient can be under responsible and apathetic. So then we could see that if we looked at it through conflict, through.
So here's your cheat sheet of 5 things. And if you wanted his book on this, I think it's like Psychodynamic something, his first book, where he covers different ways of listening. So in this video, he covered conflict, transference, latent content, enactment, and countertransference. 5 different views of interpreting a communication. I guess you also have the obvious content. So that'd be number 6. The story content. So there's 6 ways of listening.
Transference, latent content, enactment, countertransference, that each of these different perspectives allowed us to develop a more nuanced and complex understanding of the patient that allowed us then, as a result, to be more empathic, feel a little bit more liberated, a little clearer, getting a sense of what's going on. Each perspective gives you very different understandings, and then you're not the hostage of just one point of view. This is one of the most common problems in the psychotherapy field. It's like people will have one way of listening, but then they can only see the insights that kind of listening offers.
This is way too common with therapists, and mental health, that people are focused on just emotional validation, or they're focused on red flags, or they're focused on boundaries, and that's their focus. And then that focus ends up being a projection or a trigger, and then they'll dehumanize and attack a person based on that one focus. And then if people don't have their flashbacks worked out, they get triggered, and then they can't have multiple forms of listening, because by definition, if you're triggered and you split, you default into one perspective. You don't have the bandwidth to consider more perspectives when you're triggered, because you've split. The world is too complex, so you regress to taking things in as through one view. So we need a group, and we need co-historians to add the other views to fill in those gaps. To have one person do it, that's impossible or hard. You have to be a freak of nature. So then you have videotape, and you have other people to fill in the gaps of the other perspectives, and you have to be willing to hear the other perspectives. So that's. But it's easier. Isn't it easier if you have somebody else to give you a different perspective? All you have to do is listen to it, consider it. You don't have to take it in. You can reject it, but at least you should. More perspectives, the more broader context you see, the better decisions you can make.
So we end up being the hostage of one way of listening, and that yields the insights, but it can't be corrective. It's only when you have another strand of evidence, another way of listening, that you can begin to see greater complexities.
You see greater complexities, and then you see through the illusion of danger. Through one perspective, it might present there's only one answer, or there's imminent danger. If you have three perspectives, then you might see that, oh, the imminent danger is going to somebody else. It's not directly at me. It's not imminent. It's maybe later on. But more perspectives will give you more clarity. And then one perspective that I ran into the in-person, and one perspective of why this meme didn't work, or someone complained about this meme.
The message is there, has the answer.
She didn't get this meme.
Has the medicine. There's a message. The message is there, has the answer. Has.
Actually, the meme was after the video, and she didn't get it. Because she was stuck in this mindset of answers.
I think our brains, it's almost like a cognitive fault. We tend to think in terms of final answers, and life isn't really like that. As far as psychology goes and real therapeutic progress, actually overcoming trauma goes, it's more about strengths and skills. It's not really, oh, that's done, I got my cure, I'm on with my life, I'll never think about it again. I think psychology can end up being a bit in the cave, like Plato's cave, a bit solipsistic. You've got a problem in you. The solution needs to be in you. And you just think, it's all a bit anemic, that. But if you actually get somebody to go out and take action, they go, oh, I can do this. And it's not me or you that's doing that. So they're not drawing strength from me or you. They're doing it for themselves. I generally feel like psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, it sort of believes in the magic of just discovering. Like, you discover something for a client and everything magically changes. And it's like, knowing isn't enough. You've got to actually get out there and do something that pushes you a little bit.
Skill building. So knowing isn't enough. That would be action taking. That's common in the self-help world. There will be an illusion of taking action because you have the knowledge and you have some performance, but that's not the skill. And a lot of avoidant, fragile therapists, they're going to want to reinforce this delusion, this fantasy, this magical thinking that discovery and knowledge equals some level of competence. So if you cheerlead, the thought is if you cheerlead boundaries and red flags, somehow that's going to make you be able to apply it under real stress. That is fucking horrible to set people up for failure and keep doing that fucking shit. And then shame the patient by saying, set boundaries, and just sloganeer them with more virtue signaling, like set boundaries, red flags, and just gaslight them to heck and not make them any safer from actual predators. But a question about transference and countertransference. What is transference? Transference is, this is transference neurosis.
Transference neurosis, the most important person in the patient's life. Transference neurosis, the most important person in the patient's life.
He's interacting with the transference. He's interacting with the transference. He's interacting with the transference. He's interacting with the transference.
This probably isn't the most official definition of transference. And I don't want to take a big segue into that, but I think transference generally is when somebody projects a parent figure onto you.
Transference neurosis, the most important person in the patient's life. Transference neurosis, the most.
And then to feel transference is usually a pointer I use is when you feel like bad God. So when someone dumps unrealistic expectations on you and treats you like the most important person in the world, like God, so they're dumping all this grief onto you, and then you feel like you're responsible for their whole future in their life because they're transferring, they're projecting their parental figure onto you. Transference neurosis.
Transference neurosis, the most important person in the patient's life. Transference neurosis,
and it can come out by giving grief, giving other people impossible demands.
Giving them grief.
And giving them grief, giving other people impossible demands.
Giving them grief.
And giving them grief, giving other people impossible demands.
Giving them grief.
And giving them grief, giving. So I think it's a type of projection that's very common where intimate relationships and fights, we end up projecting a parent figure or a good God or bad God figure onto this person, and then we fully act it out. And then countertransference is on the other side of that, where we don't want to be a parent figure, or we take the role and then we start defending ourselves because we take it personal. So when we're receiving transference, then there's a countertransference reaction where we fall into that because we're not.
Our task is not to repeat what she said. Our task is to analyze what she said. Our task is not to repeat what she said.
You
Our
could
task
stonewall
is to
the transference.
What she said.
Repeating what they say, but you still might be falling for the transference because the transference is a person had a numbing dissociative relationship with their parent. So they induce you through projective identification.
Oceanic union. There is no clear sense of where I am and where you are. Oceanic union. There is no clear sense of where I am and where you are. Oceanic union.
An invitation to dance.
Oceanic union.
An invitation to dance.
Oceanic union.
An invitation to dance.
So projective identification floods you with oceanic union. It invites you to play the other role, the role lock in SCT terms, or psychodrama, and then your countertransference is your side of the hypnotic induction where you fall into the other role. And the other role is to have some defense that validates their repetition compulsion. Because we have inner children also, and they get triggered by other people's inner children, by the oceanic union.
Oceanic union. There is no clear sense of where I am and where you are. Oceanic union. There is no clear sense of where I am and where you are.
So then we chase after this person who insulted us, and we think we need to prove ourselves to this person, just like they're a parent. So it's two people reaching for the other person like a parent, guaranteed with rejection or disappointment on both sides. That is true love. I know that is trauma bonding. It's not really love, but well, maybe it is love, but people are leaving lacking. But back to listening. What other things did I have? Go. Let's throw this out here. Oh no, here. Let's do... What's philosophy?
What philosophy deals with are the assumptions on which a great many normal beliefs rest. And philosophers, by examining these, teach people self-knowledge.
So this might be another layer of listening. Listening for hidden assumptions. Listening for the person's hidden moral values. Listening for the person's hidden self-betrayal wounds. Listening for the hollowness of all this performative fighting and trying to point out people's hidden assumptions. Or the group doesn't care about that. But having a philosopher's mindset to try to identify what are the values, what are the assumptions underneath. This classical way of philosophy is somehow neglected.
What they believe and why they believe it.
I think a lot of people come to philosophy wanting to be told how to live, or an explanation of life or something. To have that desire is an abnegation of personal responsibility. One shouldn't want to be told how to live. One shouldn't want definitive answers.
It's a painful thing you're saying, but of course I agree with it. Most people want to be given answers. One of the things I remember very well, Turgenev, when he's writing about his own writings, says one of the troubles about his novels, why they're not more admired than they should be, is the Russian reader in the 19th century wants to be told how to live. And he wants to be quite clear about who are the heroes and who are the villains. And he, Turgenev, doesn't do this. Tolstoy did it, Dostoevsky did it. But Turgenev says, all I do is paint human beings as they are. I don't guide the reader. I don't tell him on which side, so to speak, I myself stand. And
this is a problem of modern news. This is a problem of all Hollywood and books. They're telling you which side to be on. No one's playing the role of a philosopher to just lay out what the fuck's happening out there. And then when I do that on this channel and on YouTube and whatever, no one has any comments. Feels like some foreign environment to do classical philosophy and provide a service to people. But people with CPTSD are splitting and they just want their one view being validated, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
the reader. I don't tell him on which side, so to speak, I myself stand. And this irritates them, annoys them, leaves them hanging in some sort of way, and people hate that. It's not the business of the moral philosopher any more than it's the business of the novelist to guide people in their lives. What his business is to face them with the alternatives, with the issues, explain to them what they're choosing among. These are the values that are involved. These are the issues which
keep people in frustration to help them identify the hidden conflict. Basically the same message. Annoy people enough so they're frustrated, they're forced to feel their conflict, and try to get the hidden conflict expressed.
with the issues, explain to them what they're choosing among. These are the values that are involved. These are the issues which he has to decide between. And in the end, of course, a man has to accept personal responsibility and just do what he thinks right.
That's the problem. People don't want the end. People want to shirk personal responsibility. And mental health and support groups are somehow enabling this opting out of taking action or owning the actions you take.
And in the end, of course, a man has to accept personal responsibility and just do what he thinks right.
Because until you do what you think's right, you can't test your intuition. You can't trust your read of the situation if you never just step out and do what you think's right. And then you can't see the extent of it. Sometimes you do what you think is right and it's wrong. And then it's not really about what you do, it's about how you adapt from fucking up. That's the missing skill that no one's teaching. How do you make your fuck-ups not kill people? Or if it kills people, how do you bury the bodies after you kill people after your fuck-ups? But it's how you respond to the fuck-ups, which is the pointer of rupture repair. It's not about never having ruptures. It's not about never messing up. It's about how you adapt after messing up. Isn't that the adult answer? And then this is another angle of philosophy.
Society moves by some degree of parricide, by which the children, on the whole, kill, if not their fathers, at least the beliefs of their fathers, and arrive at new beliefs. And this is how development occurs. This is what progress is. The new model liberates one from the oppression of the old one. And then this model...
How can we do this when the old models are trying to hold a stranglehold of knowledge? Through copyrights and trademarks and schools of thought that block any sort of real research or creativity, and just flooding the zone with all the old knowledge. The old knowledge is not ready for the next generation, the current situation. The old models have to be updated. They have to be thrown away. They have to be broken. They have to be done this way.
Obscures the truth which the old model showed, and is in turn replaced by another model, which of course liberates you from the second model, but obscures bits of that, and then the fourth model comes, and the fifth model comes, and so we go from model to model. And why do we choose certain models? Because there are certain problems which oppress us particularly at particular moments of history, because of what happens around us, because of the pressures upon us.
It seems to be extraordinary that so many so-called plain men should assert that the critical examination of these models is really an abstract and unrealistic activity, because if you don't drag out into the light the presuppositions of your thinking, especially in moral and political and social spheres, then that makes you simply the prisoner of whatever the reigning orthodoxy is. It makes you the prisoner of the existing model, of the model of your age or the model of your day.
So it makes you the prisoner. What if a lot of this boundary talk is basically creating a prison for yourself? I don't want my assumptions challenged. I don't want to ever get triggered. Let me put up walls and all around. So then I'm stuck in my frame. I'm stuck in the frame that I've been propagandized growing up or from my childhood. In the name of safety, in the name of mental health, I'm being self-prisonized by the dominant frame. And then culture already has external framing.
Culture is the frameworks that you've learned to use to narrow and specify the world. Culture is the framing is associated with security on the one hand, because it tells you what you can do and, makes things safe for you, and tyranny on the other hand, because it can get out of control and, it can start to get too rigid. The prose side of framing is, well, then you get to do something. If it's unframed, you're in chaos. It's existential anxiety. You're not going to move ahead at all. So you have to frame things. You have to simplify them. And really, in some sense, you even have to oversimplify them. What you're really trying to do is to never make your perceptual task any more complex than it has to be in order to get done what you need to get done.
So there's a balance between structure, limitation, and chaos. And there's a balance between too much freedom, so we can give full free rein to everything, and that's too chaotic, so then people are paralyzed. So you need a balance of discipline and restraint, in addition to some level of chaos and newness, to gain some mastery, the proper balance.
How do you frame things? Well, the first thing we should point out is that a lot of framing doesn't even happen psychologically. Right, so here you are sitting in this classroom, and You're not overwhelmed by chaos. Well, why? Civilized world is just taken care of for you. And then, now you're in the university in the city, and that eliminates a whole bunch of other hassles. And then you're inside this building, and well, look at that. There's electric light here, and and the chairs work, and there's not going to be an earthquake, and probably the whole building isn't going to fall down. So, by the time you're sitting in your chair here, also with your clothing on, you've screened a lot of complexity out already, and so you can sit there fairly calmly. And so that's all external. When you're protecting your cultures, you're not just defending something psychological. The functioning culture keeps the lights on. So it doesn't just protect you from death anxiety. It also protects you from death. You don't ever want to underestimate just the practical utility of being nested inside, what Piaget would consider a relatively functional game. It's like your world's a lot simpler. You have to work to maintain it and everything, and that's kind of a drag, maybe. That's the tyrannical element of it, but, the payoff's pretty big. It's all framing, getting rid of complexity, unnecessary complexity. And so one of the Piagetian rules for a playable game is there's some reciprocity. You regard the system, roughly speaking, as either fair or fairer than any other system you can think up. It boils down to the same thing, because if it's not fair, but you can't come up with a better fantasy, well, it's as good as it can be. Anyway, so a lot of the screening that you do to get rid of that complexity is external, and part of that is a consequence of good, well-functioning sociological organization.
So a fair game is important as a ground rule, because then resentment, if not, resentment kicks in. And then resentment starts tearing down rules and other stuff in pain. A lot of homeless people are probably on the psychosis side, so they'll have their own personal frames. You could interview each one personally. We'll get that into Act 3. So listening. Welcome, Rock.
What are Sangomas? Sangomas are expert seers and spirit listeners. Seers and spirit listeners. Their ears are open to hearing the spirit realm as well as the character that takes on the voice of the internal conflicts. Experiences of anxiety can mean that we need to slow down and pay attention, but it can also mean that an ancestral spirit may be re-experiencing a trauma through you.
So anxiety could be an emotional flashback or some intergenerational trauma. Taking over your body, giving you a message.
For example, a person could be triggered into a panic attack, and every time they go to the ocean, not knowing that a relative drowned in the water. In order for these types of explanations to come to a foundation, it would require a divination, or to go to a Sangoma to address the specific related issues to that individual. To identify the spirit of anxiety, to speak to it, to build a relationship with it. I welcome you. Why are you here? What message does my spirit of anxiety want to bring? And what action is the spirit wanting to invoke? Once the message is received and acted upon, the spirit of anxiety transforms into simply the messenger. When someone is in those extreme states, whatever it is, to really listen to them at that time. Lots of times there's a message, it might be muddled over or, a streamline of thoughts, but there's a message in that state that has the answer or has the medicine that they actually need.
So she's pointing out, in those extreme states, in the intensity, that's where the honesty is. That's when you have to listen for the message or the medicine. But that's where countertransference and your defenses kick in. So you're not going to be listening when the biggest screams from primitive regression kick in. Even me, when I was fighting with John, I didn't hear the primitive stuff till a day or two later where I pointed out his attacks back were those messages. In extreme states.
Listen to them at that time. Lots of times there's into simply the messenger. When someone is in those extreme states, whatever it is, to really listen to them at that time.
So this is one of my superpowers, to pour gasoline or escalate and try to get the message out when people are triggered. But if people have a rule that I'd never want to be triggered, then you're blocking the message from getting out to the surface. Or when someone's triggered and they get sloppy and now they're starting to be honest, and then you just focus on them being triggered or moralizing them and shutting it down, that same attitude to someone else is going to be the attitude to yourself. It's not an attitude of listening to the spirit. What's the message?
Lots of times there's a message. It might be muddled over or, a streamline of thoughts, but there's a message in that state that has the answer or has the medicine that they actually need. And I've learned to listen deeply and from a spiritual perspective so that I can identify what their spirit is truly saying when they're in those extreme states.
And what's the unmet need of the inner child? The spirit of the inner child. What is the inner child saying? What is their soul, their devoiced part, trying to agonizingly cry out in those extreme states?
Acceptance of not just part of the experience, but the whole experience. The message is there. Those people can receive the support and the help that they need. There's a message in that state that has the answer, has the medicine that they actually need. There's a message. The message is there, has the answer. What has the medicine? Sangomas are expert seers and spirit listeners. Seers are expert seers and spirit listeners. Seers and spirit listeners.
So if there's an expert seer and spirit listener, they're busy seeing and listening to spirit. They're not busy talking, selling, pitching, giving answers. Filling up tons of content. Oftentimes, if the spirit's giving you a message you don't want to hear, your toxic superego doesn't want to hear, then you're going to block people that are giving you the message. Attack the messenger. That's a common scapegoating strategy. That happens in the YouTube channel. I occasionally still get attacks on the Dr. Ramani analysis video from like 3 years ago. They'll just attack the messenger or attack the channel because they don't want to hear the message. And then I fall for the bait. If I follow them or argue it, then they blocked the message. That was their goal.
They call you fucking stupid, like right off the bat.
Yeah. Ad hominem, and then take the bait, then they win. That's, I'm helping them, self-regulate or avoid the reality. I gotta figure out how to be better at being a Sangoma, listening to the spirit and putting it out there. I'll still get negative feedback, but at least it'll be addressing the spirit. Another angle of Sangoma is shamanism and alchemy.
Interested in the occult arts and particularly alchemy, which is very interested in the occult arts and particularly alchemy, which is the study of transmutation, taking things from a base metal and turning it into gold, which is a metaphor for the transmutation of that which is dense and materialistic matter into the realm of spirituality. Not a geographical space, but maybe an intellectual space in cyberspace where we can summon the alchemists. We can have the shamans, the weirdos, the outsiders, as Terence McKenna said of the shaman. It's somebody's role to be outside of everything and to channel pure chaos, pure potentiality, and pure novelty. You can't live like that. Everybody can't be that. But a few people who are interested in doing that, who have that natural inclination, they can and they should. So we need a space for that. Said of the shaman, it's somebody's role to be outside of everything and to channel pure chaos, pure potentiality, and pure novelty.
If you had a good father figure, isn't part of their role, or a mentor or coach, to be outside of the game and to present scenarios to prepare the team, the person, for the battle? What's a good football coach trying to do? He's outside of the game and he's creating practice scenarios, channeling chaos to try to build the maximum amount of skill in preparation for the battle. How many people are going into mental health to their therapist, and the therapist is trying to prepare you to be the best man, the best woman you can be, to be the best husband, wife you can be? Where is this role of shaman or coach or mentor in this mental space? I'm scared of Act 3. The madness abyss. The curse of it and the power of it. This is dangerous territory. I'll give myself till 9:20.
Madness is the abyss. 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 Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
Don't call me a liar. Don't call me a liar. Don't call me a liar.
Madness
Don't
is
call
the
me a
abyss.
liar. Don't call
Madness
me
is
a
the
liar.
abyss.
Don't call me a
Madness is
liar. Don't call me a liar. Don't say this isn't real. Don't say this isn't real. Don't say this isn't real.
Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
Like you're attacking me. Attacking me. Like you're attacking me. Attacking me.
Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation.
I'm really worked up right now. My nervous system is really high right now. I'm really worked up right now. I'm just feeling really attacked right now. Feeling really attacked right now. I'm just feeling really attacked right now.
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
Is this supposed to be healing? Is this supposed to be healing? Is this supposed to be healing?
Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation.
Be more fucking constructive.
What would be healing just to myself, some sort of healing? What would be healing just to myself, some sort of healing?
Madness
What would be
is
healing
the abyss.
just to myself,
Madness
some
is
sort of
the
healing?
abyss.
What would be
Madness
healing
is the
just to
abyss.
myself, some sort
Madness-
of what would be healing?
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
You decide. You decide. You decide. You decide. You decide. You decide. You
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
So much to learn. So much to learn. So much.
Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. utter.
That's not connection. That's not connection. That's not connection. That's
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the.
That's crazy making, crazy making, crazy making. That's crazy making, crazy making, crazy making. That's
utter annihilation. Madness is the abyss.
That is calling up the spirits of madness. The spirits of madness are probably linked to childhood sexual abuse. That might be the gift and the curse of pedophilia, or early sexual exploration or invasion. That's one of my recent observations or theories. And we'll dive in and see where it goes. Where shall we start? Oh, trigger warning. Does anybody have any issues with talking about heavy, scary content?
Heavy what?
Heavy content. Madness content. Abyss-like content.
Madness is the abyss. It's the experience of utter annihilation, total fragmentation of the personality. We are terrified of madness.
So we're going to take oceanic merging and annihilation anxiety and take it to the level of psychotic madness.
Madness is the abyss. It's the experience of utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. The therapist has to ask, where is this process leading? What is this mythic imagery trying to express? Madness is not an illness, and it's not a disorder.
Someone has to ask.
The message is there, has the answer, has the medicine. There's a.
And you have to ask when you're triggered by psychotic transference. Super hard.
Illness, and it's not a disorder. Madness is the abyss. It's the experience of utter annihilation, total fragmentation of the personality. Atwood points out that madness is called a disease localized in the brain because we are terrified of madness. When someone falls into the abyss, they need human understanding to help them back to survival. But an objectified psychiatric diagnosis is the antithesis of the needed validation and mirroring. Delusions are like dreams. They are symbolic. They are metaphorical expressions. What they're trying to do is restore the individual and try to protect themselves from the sense of being annihilated. If you hear...
So the metaphors and the delusions are an attempt to express themselves and restore themselves. So if you just dismiss it because they're fucking delusions and they're not real, that might be their one clinging last ditch grasp to reality or to expression, to some lost care of theirs. So you can't shortcut the process. That's often why they become more psychotically violent, when you just dismiss their delusion, even though it is a delusion. But it's symbolic. There is a message.
The message is there, has the answer, has.
And then you want to learn how to listen to.
What was the response? I just related to her. How is she responding to that? What is that? What was the patient's response to intervention? What was...
And learn how to think in metaphors and symbolic stories.
The sense of being annihilated. If you hear apocalyptic imagery about the end of the world, they are symbolically talking about their feeling of disintegration. and the need for a radical personality change, an attempt to compensate for a damaged sense of self and to express what's going on in the personality. People suffering from psychosis often feel annihilated. They may feel they don't exist. They are in a kind of state of non-being, feel annihilated. The person's mind and body feel as if they're being controlled, or they don't belong to the person.
They're possessed by a demon, but if they admit it, they feel like they're going to be more possessed, or they're not in control. And then there's this non-being part, which he's saying a different conclusion, but I've seen this second part, non-being.
So when you talk to such a person and you unthinkingly use a word like you immediately open up a gulf of misunderstanding and invalidation, because there is no you.
No, that's a paradox. They feel like there's no you. I will say, why can't you look at my eyes and stay with me now? And they fucking freak out like they're terrified to heck. Because they don't feel, they can't own their you. They can't own their pronoun. Unless you're like George Atwood and you want to go visit this person every day for 10 years and listen and mirror back their story. I don't mind using this you loophole, this present moment, real and now, to try to connect to them in real time. But it will amplify their defenses. It is a dangerous technique.
And invalidation, because there is no you. They feel like they don't exist, annihilated. Addressing them as if they exist makes communication impossible.
But it's fun. It's not impossible. You listen to the latent content and everything else, what they say, and everything else is going to be madness and craziness. But physically, they're there. Physically, their soul and their expression is in present moment. It is a hard tactic or counter.
Reinforces their sense of not being understandable. The person is living in a different world.
Now, one technique I use is I try to get them to take a stance of ownership, and I reflect that back to them. So I'm not going to reflect back my idea of him or her. I'm going to try to get them to state something with ownership and try to meet them there in real time. That would be my bridge. Because if you just totally yield to their frame, they're all over the place. Take forever. And maybe they're too scared to meet in person. So the resistances to emotional closeness are very, very high. They don't want to show up because they're scared of being seen and they don't feel like a person. That's his theory.
In childhood, this person was taken over by caregivers, annihilated.
Or by a pedophile. They were annihilated. Oceanic merging.
The parental agenda overpowered the child's personal development and overpowered the child's identity, annihilated.
Overpowered emotionally and maybe sexually. And so all they know is overpowering as a relationship. And it's not overpowering to them because it's just
Oceanic union. There is no clear sense of where I am and where you are.
It's not a boundary
Oceanic
violation
union.
to them.
There is no clear sense
Because
of
it's just all
where
the
I
world
am
is
and where you
self.
are. Oceanic union. There is no clear sense of where I am and where you are.
We're in reality, or we have some sense of reality testing, so we feel violated. They're still lost in pedophilia union, so violating others is violating themselves. There's no other, there's no self. It's confusing.
Powered the child's identity, annihilated, and didn't allow independence, annihilated, completely regulated.
No independence. If their independence was annihilated, annihilating my independence is fair game. They don't know boundaries. It's out of ignorance. It's out of genuine clueless baby.
The parental agenda overpowered the child's personal development and overpowered the child's identity, annihilated, and didn't allow independence, annihilated, completely regulated by outside forces. So later on, when they become psychotic and the fragile personality falls apart, this delusion of control, like by an influencing machine, becomes the concrete expression of that early experience of being completely at the mercy of the parental agenda.
So the paranoia is a projection onto an all-encompassing monster that's symbolic of being invaded by parents or by abuser or by the world at a young age. So if we're not listening to it in a phenomenological, metaphorical way, we just say, oh, that's just paranoia and delusion. Because technically, yes, but metaphorically and shadow content, it's a plea of the soul, of the voiceless, agonizing, torn soul that's trying to cry in pain from being violated, from being annihilated.
Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation, utter annihilation, utter.
And maybe they're annihilating you and everybody else to show how important their wound was. Because a voiceless wound from utter annihilation only knows how to express and share voicelessness to somebody else. And who wants to witness voicelessness? It feels like annihilation. It's not pleasant to hang out with.
Madness is the abyss. It's the experience of utter annihilation, total fragmentation of the personality. We are terrified of madness. Madness is the abyss.
I don't understand what's happening here. I don't understand what's happening here. I don't understand what's happening here. I don't.
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
Oh. Here's an example of pedophile confidence.
And I was referring generally, vaguely, to the sex abuse that's taken place. He knows I know about it. He knows I know about it. After all that's happened and all that took place in your family early and all, I thought you might want to do what you could for her. Because she certainly needs the help, and you're in a position to be able to help her. And he said, "Excuse me, Dr. Atwood, I should help her?" And starts yelling at me. "I should help her?"
Do you hear the moral outrage? If a pedophile and an abuser has this level of moral outrage and hatred, why the fuck are codependents trying to use moral outrage? Your moral outrage is not going to moral outrage a pedophile. It's not going to moral outrage a narcissist. It's a fucking stupid moral defense. But you'll still moralize against the group and me because it's fighting against air. A narcissist and a real abuser is still going to crush any sort of moral outrage because they have a better dominant frame. They're trying to invite you to lose your soul by choosing the path of schizoidism, rejecting your humanity, and being a mini narcissist and just losing future battles. Is that what people really want? And then I have to performatively stab myself in the heart to try to make a plea for humanity, and you guys still reject it. Because it's safe being a detached schizoid. not feeling, selectively feeling, playing God or whatever that posture is. But this is the kind of energy you're going against. And I'll show some more pedophilia, real abuser examples to show you what real madness looks like.
After that whole, I'm quoting him, after that whole sordid business, these are his exact words, that she put me through, I should help her. Excuse me, Dr. Atwood? The sordid business was the fact that she had testified against him in court when she was 13 years old. Because that's what had happened, and legal arrangements had been made so children, custody was removed from the family, and protections were put in place. And
after like 10 years of daily sexual abuse invasions, she testified, and he's outraged.
He couldn't be around the children anymore without somebody being a chaperone and so on like that. But what he was referring to, that whole sordid business, was not his sexual abuse of her. It was her incomprehensible having turned on him and said he did something terrible to her. That's what
He's outraged at the betrayal of rejecting the fantasy, the shared fantasy of sexual perversion.
Talking about. He got him in so much trouble with the courts and almost put him in jail, but he managed to escape prison time because the family needed him to support them. And when I got off the phone with him that day, I felt like I was insane. You know what I was saying? I thought you could, after what happened and the damage that was done and so on, wouldn't it be good if you could maybe help her out? He says, I should help her, that sordid business. I felt like my brain was scrambled. Have you ever talked to somebody, you know, where you think you're making sense, and they react in such a way that it just twists your brain in about 14 different ways. It cuts your corpus callosum,
God,
knocks off the brainstem, cancels the frontal lobes, all this. Did you think you're making sense? And they react in such a way that it just twists your brain in about 14 different ways. It cuts your corpus callosum, knocks off the brainstem, cancels the frontal lobes, all this. That's what I felt like. But it actually turned out to be helpful.
This is a person who's actively working with extreme schizophrenic cases, and he still was floored by hearing a blast of moral outrage from a pedophile. He's in the face of very confusing psychotic stories and blasts, and he still couldn't handle that level of moral outrage. The dominant frame of pedophiles.
All this, that's what I felt like. But it actually turned out to be helpful because I realized no wonder she went crazy. I almost went crazy after a 20-minute conversation with the guy. I almost went right out of my mind. I felt like going to a bridge and jumping off and throwing myself into the water. He played with reality there.
And then that little clue, the latent content, the transference content, he felt like
right out of my mind. I felt like going to a bridge and jumping off and throwing myself into the water.
That's the inner hurt that the pedophile has inside that he dumped and evoked in him.
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation.
He got a taste of that empty schizoid core. And that utter annihilation, that self-destructive urge, and he wanted to jump off a bridge. So here's a theory of someone that I think has some pedophile background, just based on her dominant frame.
Kellyanne Conway. Do reports about Trump napping in court mean he lacks the stamina to be president again? I know he's not napping. It's fake news.
So listen to Bill Maher's rhythm and pace, and then compare it to Kellyanne Conway if you want an example of true AI.
Well, he says he's just resting his eyes. He's just taking it all in. What do you think, Kellyanne?
I'm bored, so probably he is sitting there. I'm bored just reading the clips every day. I think that, look.
Pulls it out of his ass.
The media who covers him never thinks that their job is to get the story. They think their job is to get Trump. We've been living with this for 10 straight years. I think that's less important than all the polls that show people don't think Joe Biden's got the energy, agility, acuity. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
All over the map.
That probably Joe Biden's voters are not for Trump.
All over the map.
More than for Biden. I don't think there's a
all over the map
single hidden Joe Biden voter in this country. I think there are millions of hidden Trump voters in this country.
But you know, I could show a video right now. We could put of
We see
Trump.
them all day
of
long. Trump is all day long. Trump is everybody's adjective, verb, noun in every sentence.
He pulls it out of his ass. Could I get 3 words into that sentence?
On that
Duper's delight. Infantile defenses are amazing. Infantile plus pedophile type invasion energy, even more impervious.
You had a long oration there. I'm just going to say, I could put together, and people.
He's calling out the behavior, trying to evoke some shame. Does it do anything?
Have a video of Trump looking absolutely just as senile and doing crazy senile. And of course, Joe Biden is not actually crazy. Your guy is actually crazy. He doesn't make decisions rationally. The reason why he's so ahead is because he doesn't have to worry about policy points that he makes because no one takes him seriously anyway. He's all over the map. He pulls it out of his ass. He changes one day for the next.
We all have the same bias in hiring. We hire people to do a job who've done the job before.
Changes one day for the next.
You ask them about their experience. You look at their references. You call people about their work product. We have that bias. And so now people, for the first time in centuries or ever, have an opportunity to look at 2 presidents who have served in the job as commander-in-chief, as president of the United States, and you decide. Do I feel more comfortable or better off with one or the other? It's a binary choice. It's very clean.
Do you remember what Bill Maher said? Do you remember where this started? Do you see that dissociative effect? Do you see that gaslighting, that sort of fantasy projection dominant frame that she's able to project? Is this extreme confidence in this performance from childhood sexual abuse or pedophile type initiation? Maybe.
All over the map.
But as for policy, you can't argue with the facts. You can't argue that in 2019 we had the highest wage per household and the lowest poverty rate in modern history. I mean, things were going well. The trade deals, the border was more secure. I mean, these things matter to people.
The biggest fact in the last 3 elections is that one guy does not concede when he loses.
And he's acting out emotion because she's being a numb robot. He's fighting for reality, and he's making a plea for reality, and he's getting angry and doesn't have any effect on her.
Tell him to be a man. That's what men do.
And he's saying, let's be adults. Why should she be an adult? Infantile defenses work way better. Being a child works better. It works for her. It worked for Trump.
You ever watch the end of a football game? They fought like hell, and the coaches, they walk across the field and they shake hands. They don't want to do it. It hurts like hell, and they do it.
Doing something embarrassing, being an adult and feeling shame, that hurts. Taking a loss, that hurts.
It's a good message.
He's the first guy who just won't do it.
It's an equally good message for...
Does she look phased? She already has her redirect, her sandbox jump.
The many...
Pulls it out of his ass.
Democratic members of Congress, many of whom are still there because they're in safe seats forever, who have never voted to certify a presidential election of a Republican candidate in this century. They didn't do it for Bush, Trump. No,
That's
this matters.
the weakest whataboutism I've ever heard.
It's not a what.
He calls it out. All she does is dismiss it. It's just...
Nope, never happened. Or nope, maybe it didn't even happen. Nope, that's not actually what happened. Nope, didn't matter. Nope, didn't matter. Nope, didn't matter. Nope, you're overreacting. Nope, you're overreacting. Nope, you're overreacting. Nope.
Dramatic denial, it's easy. Especially if you're crazy.
What about it? They either did or they didn't. They won't certify the election results On their January 6th.
All over the map, pulls it out of his ass, changes one day for the next.
You decide. 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 You cognitive overload. Cognitive overload. Cognitive. You decide. 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 You decide.
You're overreacting. Nope, you're overreacting. Never happened. Nope, maybe it didn't even happen. Nope, didn't matter. Nope, didn't matter. Nope, you deserved it. 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 Nope, didn't matter. Nope.
So I can say you decide, and then I just flood you with noise and flood you with stuff so you can't think. How can you decide? How can you determine anything? I can determine your choices by flooding you. And then I can blame you, saying you decide. That's a language of agency game. That's why the book is describing it, and I think it's good pointer, even though the book is immensely dense and painful. But this language of agency game, the pedophiles, the abusers do it better than us. Why are you choosing this path of language of agency and moralizing and just blame game? It's a loose strategy. So here's a clearer thought disorder example.
I was in psychosis for about 2 years. Psychosis, it changes you. Psychosis is completely irrational thought disorder. Your thoughts are your own, but they're not your own at the same time. Thought disorder changes you. It's confusing. It feels real to you, whatever you're thinking of. Thought disorder, even though it's not actually real to anyone else. My thoughts were very dark. I thought I was part of a war of the gods of heaven and hell. Thought disorder. I thought I was going to be like the savior or something, or I was being
apocalyptic thoughts, metaphors.
Controlled by these gods and stuff. I once had these thoughts, thought disorder, that I thought were real. They weren't real, but they were to me, thought disorder. And so I think when I have any kind of peace and quiet, and I'm just trying to relax, there's something I can't relax, there's something I can't relax. Dark, there's something I can't relax, there's something I can't relax. Thoughts like that kind of...
You can't relax because he has...
utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Utter annihilation.
Maybe he's lost his center.
I creep up. Some part of it, like in the back of my mind, comes up, thought disorder. And I don't like that because it was scary for a long time. And I'm so scared of my thoughts in a certain degree because of that. It was a scary time in my life going through psychosis. Changes you, having these dark thoughts. Dark. But I can't really be alone with my thoughts. I can't just sit, relax. So what I do is I constantly am doing something. I'll be playing a game, but at the same time I'll have to watch a YouTube video or a comedy TV show. I always have to distract myself because I know thought disorder. If I'm left alone with my thoughts, it could get scary. Dark.
Where is the Sangoma?
The message is there, has the answer, has the medicine. There's a message, the message is there, has the answer.
I've been distracting myself with video games and movies and TV shows since I fell ill.
Blocking the message, maybe.
Distracting myself from those scary thoughts that I was having at the time. Say we're sitting at a table and there's other people around. I end up focusing on what everyone else is saying and what I'm thinking of at the same time. Thought disorder. It makes it really hard for me to understand where the conversation is going, what I'm trying to say. It gets really jumbled. Thought disorder. A big issue with schizophrenia is the thought disorder. Changes you. The thought disorder. Things will just get jumbled. Thought disorder. I get completely distracted, like easily. Thought disorder. No matter how important the conversation might be, not being able to focus exactly on one thing. Thought disorder. And
back to creepy pedophiles?
Is really through what I would say cues of safety. Now, you can't give them cues of safety in the traditional sense of direct face-to-face eye contact, because their nervous system will respond to that as intrusiveness because of proximity. They don't want anything proximal to them. Intrusiveness because of proximity. They don't want anything proximal to them. However, the reduction of stimulation might be helpful, make the room quieter. The enhancement of intonation in one's voice might be helpful.
Is this a script of how to be a better pedophile?
Basically, the nervous system is overwhelmed with cues of defense, and the only way to turn that off is to do two different things. Remove cues of activity and energy and potentially intrusiveness, and to try to sneak in cues of safety, which would be intonation of voice, would be the only way you could do it.
Nice sugary language to sneak in cues of trust and safety and gentleness or something, so then you can sneak in behind somebody and molest them.
So if the person's in those sense, you might, in a sense, start using a more hyperprosodic voice, almost, but being very careful not to mimic how you talk to babies or cats and dogs, because the person might see that as being minimizing or dismissive of who they are.
Be extra paranoid to tiptoe around your target because you don't want them to see your true motive.
Minimizing or dismissive of who they are. So you want to, in a sense, change how you are breathing in the presence of another. You want the breaths to be calmer. You want to give signals that you are safe and that you're not angry or disappointed in them.
You're spending all this time to con the other person's nervous system to get the other person to get some certain message. You're not spending time communicating your humanity. He has this giant muscle to throw himself into some agenda to shapeshift the receiver's nervous system. Somehow he got this. I don't have this. Maybe you guys have it. I don't know. I can't think like this.
So to change or reach a person in a free state I'm going to say it's almost a hypothetical question.
Why do I need to reach a person in a free state? Don't they just need heat? That's why they're fucking freezing? Don't they need some layers? Don't they need some space? Maybe some gentle space? Why would I want to, invade it?
Yeah, but that's easier to invade.
For him...
Someone is in a frozen state, and then you can kind of invade their nervous system. If there's some heat, if there's some movement, it's really hard to invade. But if someone is in this free state, it's much easier. So they want to keep them there.
If your goal is to invade, or somehow you're curious about how free states get invaded, because maybe you were a victim, so now you're obsessed about the process. I guess I need to learn how to enjoy invading frozen corpses or something. Some people are turned on by that. See, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I have a lot of disgust reactions in my system.
That's the creepy vibe that he's saying, but he's not. He's using nice words. That's what they're good at. They hide it. So John saying moralizing pedophiles and hating them more, what the fuck does that do? These people hide in plain sight.
Yeah, I know. But what if John was repeating a delusional
pattern?
Kind of hope that was told by him by others, like if you moralize, everything will be safe.
Yes.
I think he was bringing that out instead of being like saying, this is the one truth I have. I didn't read John as this is the only truth there's out there. I think he was just repeating the delusion he noticed that wasn't true, but doesn't know how to deal with it, like this double bind.
He's repeating a language of agency to help
Yes.
contain his fear and terror or whatever. And while he's repeating it strongly and silencing everybody else by devoicing other people, it's a sloppy way of crying for help. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard the cry for help. Far
But
more than the
where is the
voicing.
reception for help? When he's an expert at obfuscating and blocking any sort of emotional closeness. That was the upside of the defenses. The defenses are so good. Why would he give that up and receive help?
Did you abandon him then?
Did I or could I? What?
Should one?
What's the threat to abandon him? I guess it depends on the situation, since the Discord and the group is a group and people are welcome to come and go, so that's not abandoning him. There's no sanctions.
You're saying he has defenses?
I'm saying that John has defenses? Or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Who doesn't? I mean...
His seem quite strong, I guess. But, I mean, this is like English John you're talking about.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the
there's
one
a bunch of
you
back
went
and
rounds
forth on the
with, yeah.
Discord. So that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I never go on the Discord. It seems like a lot of people fall out because of the Discord.
Fall out because of the Discord.
Well,
Kelly,
that's the start.
it's your fault.
Well, this is just at least.
Yeah, I'm here to wreck things, you know. I think John he only feels comfortable in uncomfort when things are uncomfortable.
There we go. I guess though, if he's really uncomfortable, he'd feel more comfortable if you were all uncomfortable too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
Seems logical.
Being comfortable is letting his guard down. Being comfortable is foreign. Being comfortable
Some
is...
people can't handle peace and serenity. They need that turmoil in their life.
Well, no. That's not
The
listening to the
message is
message.
there. Has the answer.
Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation. Utter annihilation.
The trap is personalizing it. If he has utter annihilation and there's no self, that's shown by his lack of pronouns. He can't own himself because there's no I.
Maybe she's got too much pain. I don't know.
Might be.
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
Yeah, and if we were talking about annihilation of personality, of I, that makes sense, because John also said that he was invaded by pedophiles and he could fight them off at age 14 or something.
I don't know if he's...
That would make sense.
What age, but sure. He was guarded, and that was part of his survival mechanism, so he's still guarded.
Yeah. And maybe the internet troll energy is just the layer we at this moment can see and experience, but we also saw him reading the poem. I don't know if you remember, but I mean,
remember.
that
Sure.
hit for me at least a layer in my heart and in my soul that was real. So if he can do that, that means that there's still a connection to his real soul space. So then the internet troll is just a cover-up. It's protective energy.
Yes, but isn't the internet troll the loud voice?
Yeah, of course. The
Doesn't
voice he
doesn't
can
that
use.
mean the internet troll wants to be seen first?
I guess so.
So if you try to look at the more attractive, innocent poet inner child, is it dismissing?
No,
the-
that's not compassionate.
Yeah.
That's way too scary.
So the scary part is what makes him feel safe to share. You want to dismiss it because you sort of want to see the good part, but also the scary part is scary, so it's hard to give that scary part space.
Yeah. I think both are there. What I wanted to point out is don't forget the other part that was also there.
Well, that
I'm
depends.
reacting on
I think that's
internet
tricky.
troll energy.
Because the internet troll energy has a goal, and that's a gatekeeper. And if it wants to be seen and it wants people to be scared, then that navigating that is hard.
True. It's just keeping distance, so that's the spaciousness that's outside. What I thought I was doing too. Like keep a lot of space outside, but it's the space inside that I really needed.
The space inside you really needed what?
Yeah, I assumed that if I could keep people at a distance, that there was separation, that I would be secure. I could control, but that's not true. So maybe I could be projecting, but maybe that's something I learned as a child, as an adaptive skill, as a thought disorder. I don't know. I picked it up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I made it my defense. So
okay, defense.
If a defense is an adaptive memory, then somewhere I used it and it worked. So I think if John is doing the same, then we have to address the defense first and let it feel that this defense is actually counterproductive on what he really needs. Oh, I'm making no.
No, you're not. You're making perfect logical sense.
It's logical sense, but the defense is not a logical entity.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're trying to rationalize with
conclusion.
the defense that's a survival instinct.
Yeah,
that doesn't have the
I think-
perspective that Chantal has. So you're trying to
That's what
invade
you
his
do.
mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Because his
I felt
invitation is to get you to pedophile him back. His invitation is to invade him back to prove the world is dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you're
I
doing
felt
it good-hearted, you're still falling into the induction.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Yeah, I don't have a
Yeah, I
formula
felt
yet.
it.
Yeah.
I was explaining. I was like,
As you're
"What are we
explaining, you
doing?"
saw. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I saw my own invasion.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Oh my
super hard.
God.
Yeah, see?
It's it's so
And the group
tricky.
wants
I
to
mean,
cheerlead that answer, but that's invading.
But back to when he did read the poem, what led up to that was probably something that was extremely uncomfortable for him either. That whole
remember.
the setup, yeah. We were kind of
Do you remember what was leading up to that?
I remember parts of how it felt.
Yeah, that I remember too.
And
For me, it sort of came out of the blue. It took me by surprise.
hmm.
Maybe he was going through a phase, or maybe going through his memories and triggers.
Well, one of the fears of people with DID is that if their inner child gets called by their name, that the little can take over the system.
Master controller.
So defenses are paranoid about the littles taking over the system, so sometimes those defenses are hyper aggressive because they know there's a back door. Not just from pedophile, but also the littles can be accessed directly by people who know how to summon them. I don't know what that back door is. So, just because he has a back door and he shared a poem.
Was he moralizing? He was saying moralizing his offender by being the victim. He was trying to say that heroes have a moral side to him. Is that what he was saying in the Discord?
No, he's moralizing by saying they're all bad. He's giving moral outrage. Moralizing is moral outrage.
Okay.
Where you moralize somebody is all bad or one behavior is all bad, and then you want other people to join in, or this is a moral ultimate that can never be broken again. So that was his moralizing.
Would you argue against him that there's a good bit about pedophilia?
I was arguing that moralizing only goes so far, so we have to see what the mechanism is to make some change or to protect ourselves. We can't just moralize and think that's some magic that changes the world. That's infantile. To think that your judgment is going to change the world, is going to stop abusers, that's stupid.
Right,
Abusers are good at abusing, they're good at persuading, they're good at manipulating. Your judgment is not going to change that. And your judgment is not going to help see them any better. You're not going to spot them, you're not going to warn other people. They're still going to go out in the system and continue their abuse. The moralizing just fooling yourself or fooling others, that moralizing makes a difference.
So that's what I was getting from y'all's argument on the Discord, that you were trying to say that there needs to be more research into it to stop pedophilia than to just say that they're bad or whatever. There needs to be more talk about it or whatever in order to prevent it. And he was saying
there needs to be more perspectives, and he was just saying they're horrible.
He was just adding on more moral outrage. Like, he was doubling down over and over again.
Okay. Yeah.
Doubling down, that's a very good word to use, yes. That's what I say.
So let's try to wind down the formal portion, and then we can go with a theory of pedophilia by George Atwood, since we're all curious about it, so that's pretty good for a setup.
Here's what I think. No one is born a pedophile. A pedophile has no genetic component. I was looking on Wikipedia on pedophiles and causes and all this, and that's all kind of garbage, more or less, but here's what's obvious to me. Something has happened in the early life of the future child molesting pedophile. What happened was a catastrophe. Our sexuality is sort of for the adult world. You like young people, old people, middle-aged people, or whatever, you don't go after little kids. You just don't. So if you do, something's happened to you to shape you and shift you in that direction. Nobody understands it. Why do we not understand this? It's because people hate pedophiles so much, nobody studies them. You have to, in a way, this is going to sound strange, you have to get into a sympathetic attitude toward them. To discover the human meaning, you have to imagine your way into a world, into a life, into a child's development and a teenager's development, where this would make sense. How many experiences have I had clinically working with pedophiles? Hardly any. Want to know why? They never come for therapy. They don't think anything's wrong with them.
They don't think anything's wrong with them. So having a moral judgment on them is not going to change their imperviousness to thinking they're fine, or their defenses to block any sort of shame.
I mean, that's
a complete obliviousness.
What?
I'm just saying, like, probably the reason they don't go to therapy is because the therapist would call the police.
Oh. Because they would call to the police? Therapists call, like, suicide hotlines. Why do they call the police? I guess if they're an acting pedophile, but what if they're what if they just have pedophile drives, or when they're younger or something? Even if they would call the police, wouldn't the secret of being a pedophile be worth trying to get some resolution?
I don't know.
Well, that's what he's arguing for you to be sympathetic. So try to see the humanity behind the pedophile. You're projecting this one-track mind, like, oh, of course I'm never going to see a therapist because they'd call the police.
He's suggesting that they don't think there's anything wrong with them.
That's his experience. That was the example earlier. He hasn't been a therapist to pedophiles, but he's talked to pedophile victims and the parents, so he's interacted with them, and he studied them.
Fair enough.
Working with pedophiles, hardly any. Want to know why? They never come for therapy. They don't think anything's wrong with them. A complete obliviousness that there's any issue that needs to be corrected, any problem that needs to be addressed, forget about it.
This complete obliviousness is one of their qualities. I like this theory because I've seen this with suspected pedophiles also.
The rest of us have all kind of problems. We go for therapy for it. As far as he was concerned, he had given nothing but his love to his daughter, and a love of a very special kind that had a role in the royal courts of ancient Egypt. It takes him into a place that made him feel good about being alive, and being a person, and being a father, and being connected to something above and beyond just his own little life. So it's always sort of incidental. It's always secondary to working with their victims instead. So let me tell you my little fragmentary theory, such as it is, of what causes this. What do we know about Michael Jackson's background? We know this. He was a man whose childhood was stolen from him. That leaves you with a giant void inside your being that you need to somehow fill. So I see Michael Jackson's attraction to children, attempts to kind of revive a lost childhood that never even got to happen in the first place. I see him as somebody who had to conform and comply into his own family and into the agendas and values and principles that his parents tried to teach him, and surrendering his very soul from a very young age. It's like an attempt to reclaim one's true self back again that becomes highly sexualized and involves other children. The way to restore what has been shattered. The way to resurrect what has been killed. His sexual abuse pattern would be his effort to resurrect the thing, to pull it back together again.
So innocence lost, and then there's this drive to find yourself, or there's this drive to make sense of it, and then part of that drive is revisiting the scene. So a lot of pedophile victims end up being pedophiles themselves because they're grooming and they're trying to make sense of it because they had the invasion. They can't share it. They don't know how to put into words because it's a wound of voicelessness. It's a wound of the soul. So then this is an example of a mother and a daughter who I suspect the mother invaded the daughter with pedophile energy because the mother is oblivious to her dominant frame. The mother is super confident in her language. and the mother is sort of possessed by a schizoid, split, one-track mind, and then you can contrast the daughter. So I made this mix yesterday. It's a bit sloppy, but it's intense. So another trigger warning.
I do have some expectation from my sweet mom, who's very sweet, but she's just not great at attunement.
Okay, here.
I do have some expectation from my sweet mom, who's very sweet, but she's just not great at attunement.
Now the sweet mom, who's not great at attunement.
Getting people to go back to the place of pain, that's the place that needs the help.
The place of the pain. That's the place where all the sexual joy is.
She's just not great at attunement.
That's the place that keeps coming up with the person.
She's just...
That's the place I'm drawn to, myself also, but it comes up for that person too.
Not great at attunement.
This is the place where your chest gets tight and you're anxious or you're offended. You can't be with feelings.
You can't be with feelings. Why? Because she's scared and being fucking invaded.
Didn't feel like I knew how to get in there.
You can't be with feelings.
So she'll kind of have a little bit of the talking at you thing sometimes.
You have to go into the body very deeply.
The talk.
Very deeply. Isn't that sexy?
Go into the body very deeply.
Look how gentle and sugary she is, going deeply into the body.
The talking at you thing.
Look at her daughter be less gentle and...
deeply.
The talking at you thing.
Being afraid of other people socially, that's in the body.
No. Being afraid of other people socially is in the social fucking environment. What do you mean it's in the fucking body? Oh, imagine this as an autistic person to have some speech language pathologist say, oh, your social fear is in the body. Let me massage you.
Yeah.
There's consequences and judgments in the social landscape. Is that it's in the body, but yet it's because there's fucking things out there. Or pedophiles out there that they're fucking invading you. So yes, it's social fear. Probably because there's invasions.
I'm very sensitive, so I didn't like that.
There's pain somewhere.
I just know they're not going to really get me.
When a trauma happens, somebody has to sit with them.
I know how to take care of myself.
And make them feel safe.
I know how to take care of myself.
What if the someone says they can take care of themselves? The someone who happens to be her fucking daughter.
And make them feel able to pay attention to it.
Doesn't want to be made to do a certain thing by some possessed person who's oblivious to other people's feelings, but super confident.
You're going to do it wrong. You're not going to get it.
He's still got stuff in his body, and it takes a very active holding mom.
Off. You're going to do it wrong. You're not going to get it.
To say, let's just sit here a little with that.
Off.
I know you were only scared for a second, but your body probably still feels scared. So let's just sit with that. Make them feel safe.
You're going to do it wrong. You're not going to get it.
You're focusing them on where, what feels bad.
Didn't like that. Didn't like that. Didn't like that.
Because they have to give it attention. They have to give it time.
Didn't like that.
Make them feel safe.
Didn't feel like I knew how to get in there in my family.
You're focusing them on where, what feels bad. What feels bad.
No wonder I love teaching, because no one else can talk.
What feels bad.
If you have someone that talks down to you and says, keep focusing on what feels bad, would that cause...
Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss. Madness is the abyss.
And you have all these hyper defenses about your voice being talked over. and is triggering all these body languages of creepy vibe, get the fuck off me sort of defenses. With 2 professional therapists, she's a supervisor, and they have a whole psychotherapy practice with like 24 therapists. I don't know for sure if there's abuse, but there's a lot of clues in there. So 9:54. Huh. Went a little over. Anything else to sort of close up? Let's move away from pervy stuff, maybe. Or maybe we should go with... Do we see signs of pedophile abuse with Claudia B. from a couple years ago?
Always in a hyper-vigilant mode. To recognize red flag, hyper-vigilant mode. But I have to realize that's not a safe place. It's just like anybody can show up. They can tell you anything that you want to say.
Isn't this a bit overly sweet?
And we're going to be triggered again. Hyper-vigilant mode. And I just wonder where the healing is coming. If you keeping trigger and trigger again, so
Yes.
your brain is always in a hyper-vigilant mode. So when you're able to decrease your nervous system.
So my theory is that somebody who gets initiated into childhood molestation through some form, even if you aren't molested, if your parent was molested, they're going to use these invasive strategies to calm you down. Then they're going to teach this sort of invasive hypertone soothing at a young age, and then now you've been initiated with this range of hyper-emotionality, of excess sensitivity. So now you can use these terms of sugary, sweet, sort of invasive communication. So we might be blaming it on borderline, but it might be this sort of early initiation of using invasive grooming type of emotionality that's not recognizing difference, that's invading personal space.
And be able to go through healing, because I don't want to defend myself against another narcissist.
I don't want to defend myself. Forget another narcissist. I don't want to defend myself against another invasion.
And be able to go through healing, because I don't want to defend myself.
See, right there, before she said, there is a little disgust leak against,
myself.
That's it. Ew. Creepy.
Against another narcissist. I don't want to have that experience again.
See? I don't want to have that experience again. It's labeled in the recent trigger of the narcissist who might have brought up that memory, but it's that original core wound she doesn't want to revisit.
I created an aversion.
And she's creating all this extra language to sort of get away from the ick. An aversion. So she's trying to create other words and emphasize emotions to displace the ick, displace the invasion, displace the sexual soul tearing, the pedophilic creepiness.
To that. Hyper-vigilant mode. So if I create an aversion to that, I recognize the red flags. I think that's the point, right? Becoming here to recognize red flags.
And then she's trying to shape-shift her experience to match mental health lingo.
Recognize red flag. Recognize red flag. Hypervigilance mode.
And then does Jody have any no connection possible? Does this have any pervy energy?
Can't see it. There's no connection possible.
Can't see it if no one sees my abuse. I'm all alone.
Can't see it. Everyone that is observing me can't see it.
Everyone in my whole family doesn't see my abuse. There's no connection. I'm falling into this void.
That's not connection.
It's not real.
There's no connection possible if I'm feeling this way and it's not being observed.
Let's stay. I didn't get that observed part. See, that little bite, that harsh bite, not being observed.
Observed.
The aggression in that observed. Maybe she's being observed in the wrong way, too. Maybe she's being invaded by being observed in a creepy way. So she wants to be observed in a proper way to cover up her overexposure of being observed. So she'll have a never again will I be violated. So I will try to control other people's connection and perception of me because I don't want to be observed again, ever that same way.
It's not being observed by anyone else. There's no connection possible. Can't see it. That's not connection. There's no connection possible. Can't see it. That's not connection. Can't see it.
So this fixation, this obsession about being seen, not seen, overseen, observed, could have some. Claudia B had a bit more examples. This one, a little trickier, though I could watch the larger video of it. So we went a bit over, trying to appeal to the online audience. Hope they got something interesting.
That's all, folks.
And I just wonder, where is the healing on this?
Ooh. Took too much joy using them as clips. Okay. After party. Long formal portion. Did it make sense? Was it too crazy? Is this a missing link for mental health? This sort of invasive early initiation, loss of innocence, whether it's from childhood molestation or children that get their childhood stolen away and thrown into careers or thrown into parentification. There's all this sort of early invasiveness that perverts the adult part of that. It's tricky.
Makes sense to me, yes. And
Okay.
I personally found that a lot of mental health goes into similar invasive energy.
Yes, I found that. A lot of creepy, pervy, invasive people.
Yeah.
Especially in the trauma field.
Yeah. I notice now my connection to my disgust has always been strong, but I couldn't pinpoint why I felt so disgusted then. So it makes a lot of sense now, because during this formal session, I had the same disgust feelings, sensing them out. It makes a lot of sense. I felt the same, this invasiveness, this creepy getting into my space. That's what a lot of therapy is doing. And not only that, but also just people around me do the same. I do the same too. I do the same to others. I think it's something I learned somewhere.
Yeah, we're taught to do that.
Yeah.
We're taught that that's validation. And then the pervy molestation validation might have the gratification nonsense. People are getting too emotionally high from it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with this gratification, because I couldn't sense out the enjoying, because I didn't feel like this is enjoyment, but it's kind of stroking.
Yes, stroking.
It's known territory.
Mm-hmm. Disgusting.
Yeah, for me it's disgusting. Like disgusting, like getting that energy out of my system. Ugh.
But they're still out there. There's still a lot of people they can get their supply from. And they're getting paid for
But that also explains why it stays under the radar. Like people don't notice it.
Yeah. So. While John's pleased to say that they're bad, I agree. But just shouting at our projection of who they are versus how pervasive they might be out there is counterproductive.
Yeah.
We need adults who have multiple perspectives, who can see the long game, who can suggest changes that might make some sort of difference, not these over-emotional decisions that are from splitting.